Yo, MC Starman here from beautiful Duncan in Cow Bay with my friend Alan Churchill here.
Hello again.
We're doing the astrology of the Great Reset, and today we're going to talk about the Neptune Jupiter conjunction and what that's up to. We got a couple of chart. Of course, we're just a day before the new moon, so we'll show you that chart. We did a video on that. How you been doing, Alan?
Yeah, pretty good. I've been pretty busy actually with my other work, non-astrology work. But yeah, feeling some shifts in the pipeline.
Yeah, I feel that too. Alan runs a business. He teaches kids and adults how to ride mountain bike. It's called Next Level Riding. And so if you're interested in mountain biking in the Cowichan Valley, then Alan is your man.
Yeah, spring break was good fun. Lots of bike riding, but my legs are tired.
I would imagine so. I can't even think about it. Probably one day of riding with you would kill me.
We should try it sometime.
Yeah, well, I'll watch you all day.
Right, there you
go. I got some interesting realizations about the times that we're covering, and we've been talking about Jupiter, Neptune quite a bit. And I'm going to share with you the chart of this new moon here and show you what I mean. So here we go. Here we go. So there's the new moon, Aries. And so this is so the Jupiter Neptune conjunction is applying. So 3 degrees. And then we're going to share the Jupiter Neptune exact conjunction with you in a little bit. But so this new moon, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Chiron, all within very short distance of each other, you know, so an emphasis on Chiron. We did a video with Diana on this in the Soli Luna series. This is the Great Reset series, and especially we want to focus on Jupiter, Neptune. But my question was, or I don't know how you're feeling about this, Alan, but my question was, how come we're not feeling the Jupiter Neptune conjunction yet? How come we're not feeling this incredible? And you highlighted some quotes from from Liz Green there.
Yeah.
And you know, we'll explore that, but the realization came to me is, why are we not feeling it, and when are we going to start feeling it more clearly? And so I did the technique which we called finding the final dispositor of the chart.
So before you go into that,
okay,
think what is it about Jupiter Neptune that you think you should be feeling right now? Like, what's that feeling that you're expecting from that conjunction?
Jupiter Neptune, did you have a quote for us that you wanted to share?
Well, I could do, yeah. I was just curious of your perception of, because, you know, you're saying, why aren't we feeling it right now? So what is it that you kind of expect to feel?
Well, the Jupiter Neptune to me is a feeling of epiphany, a feeling of immense spiritual fate, a kind of a breakthrough in spirit. You know, Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces to me feels emancipating, full of faith, and full of enthusiasm for mystical engagement. What does you have?
Yeah,
Liz Green's Neptune, which is a great book.
See that there?
The Quest for Redemption. And so what does Liz Green say about it?
So just in the section where she talks about the Neptune-Jupiter aspects, just near the end of that section, she mentions Jupiter-Neptune, like all other aspects, needs to be taken into context with the whole of the chart, which is what Martin will probably come to now with his dispositor. But it may contribute its universal vision and boundless longing to love, creativity, material achievement, humanitarian work, or spiritual pursuits. Equally, it may contribute its remarkable capacity for self-delusion and self-aggrandizement to all these, generating heartbreaking losses, disappointments, and tragic acts of self-undoing. So I'll put the last little line in afterwards, but yeah, so that's kind of, there's two sides to that, right, that we could be feeling. But what you're saying is that there's something you've looked at which is maybe blocking that.
Well, I think that second part, you know, the shadow of it, I think we're feeling it more. I think that the light of it, but so the finding the final dispositor in the chart, basically. So look, we look at the sun, the moon, Mercury, and Chiron. They're in Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. So we go to Mars. Mars is in Aquarius, which is ruled by Saturn. So Saturn disposits the new moon. Jupiter and Neptune are in their own sign, so they're really strong. These are ruled by Mars, Saturn. Pluto is in Capricorn, it's ruled by Saturn. And Uranus is in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, which is in the sign of Saturn. So Saturn is the final dispositor of this chart. The only planet that Saturn doesn't rule is Jupiter and Neptune. And so then really, you know, as I was feeling this new moon, you know, how come it feels so Saturnian, you know, so limited, you know, there's so much Saturn, Uranus, the Saturn Mars conjunction, you know, there's a lot of anger, a lot of violence, you know, the famous slap, you know, and then Saturn, Venus, you know, the creativity feels really overburdened by a Saturnian in Aquarius, a Saturnian ideology, you know, and that Saturn also makes a square to Uranus. Saturn, Uranus are the two co-rulers of Aquarius. So it's like that Saturnian mood we've been going through. Now, this is going to shift in the next full moon. And we'll see that in the other chart. When Venus comes into Pisces, and then shortly after that, Mars will go into Pisces. Venus will be into Pisces right after the new moon, like beginning of next week. Venus comes into Pisces. That will be a bring change, but especially when Mars comes into Pisces, because then all of these planets will be ruled by Mars, which will be in Pisces, which will then mean that Jupiter and Neptune are ruling the sun and the moon. And when the sun and the moon, the next full moon is going to be in Aries, Libra, so which will be, you know, which will be ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. So by the next full moon will be really into the Jupiter Neptune feeling. And so I anticipate a great shift between the new moon and the full moon. But I don't know about you, but I've been finding this new moon to be very difficult. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, totally. Actually, it brings me to the second quote that I highlighted in this section.
Okay.
Talking about Jupiter, and it says with being curtailed by Saturn. So if Jupiter is curtailed in its expression, particularly by too much Saturn, we do not believe in the tooth fairy look or a benign cosmos, and life is revealed as dreary, arid, and hard. Okay, when we identify with Jupiter at the expense of other equally valid worldviews, we assume that life has no limits and will never strike us down. And if it does, this must be due to some higher plan, which, although presently incomprehensible, will nevertheless one day be revealed. So yeah, so, you know, it seems that because of that Saturn dispositor there, it is curtailing that feeling of, you know, like it says, we do not believe in the tooth fairy. It's like, okay, that faith is challenged, right? So it can be hard to see be faithful.
With all the ideologies and everything that's going on right now, it seems like we're dominated by ideologies that seem to be contrary to what Mother Nature seems to have intended. You know, there's a dissociation with Mother Nature, which really is a heavy burden to carry. You know, as individuals who really cherish our connection with spirit and cherish our connection with Mother Nature, that the overall feeling of our culture is to dissociate from spirit and to dissociate from nature and to feel that man can rule nature or man can overcome nature. This seems to it has so much psychological consequences.
Yeah, well, it's the, just coming up for me is this, the gene splicing and, everything that's coming together with, changing the genetics of humans in order to combat various potential diseases or, certain things that are useful. So children with birth defects, for instance, we're trying to change them and gene edit, and we're going against nature in a way because we believe that, we have a better control of what nature should be, right? So we're kind of interfering a little bit, and that can be, it's obviously up for debate whether that's right or wrong, but that is definitely representative of what we're seeing, right?
Absolutely. And I guess that's that Saturnian, depressive kind of feeling, that it feels so hopeless that we may be able to change. And I think that's what I'm, the collective narrative that seems to look at science as the new, the new spirituality. We're blind following
the new god,
the new pope, the scientist as the new pope, and kind of a return to the Middle Ages instead, in terms of blind following of a non-spiritual agenda, which seems to be in complete contrast and yet in the same kind of the Middle Ages blind faith kind of thing, and so it's really troubling to be following that. And that's what I meant by that, by where's that Jupiter Neptune conjunction, the Jupiter, this is a Jupiter Neptune conjunction, but it's also a Jupiter Neptune conjunction in Pisces, and so it should be really, really strong. And then, but I guess in the shadow sense, in the Saturnian sense, this need for we were talking about this earlier when we were having coffee about the what Neptune means in terms of the quest for redemption and the wanting to feel contained, to wanting to feel embraced by the Divine Mother, and so we're willing to just to accept just about any ideology so that we can feel contained in love, and so it's very interesting to see everybody so caught up in an ideology that is so very much against Mother Nature herself. And what we as humans understand about what spirit is and what our connection with spirit, and then a kind of a ridiculing of spiritual values, and I was thinking about that famous slap, what happened to turn the other cheek, what happened to the humility and to the values of a moral standing. Instead, we're willing to fight anybody to protect our sense of containment in an ideology that may very well be illusory.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because we're talking about how Neptune is that womb-like safety, right? And that search for redemption is returning back to that safety, and either that happens through death or it happens through, it's different for everybody depending on where the Neptune is in your chart, right? But it can, and what it aspects, but yeah, that need to return to that safe place, and it can be through drugs, alcohol, whatever, right? Work, all sorts of different things, that just to sort of feel safe, right? Like making money, so many different possibilities, and you can see it out in the world, how people are trying to feel safe, and everybody has their own methods, right?
It's you were talking about fear. Is it really a question of fear? Are we really afraid, or is there kind of a psychotic, like a neurosis, that plagues us in our time, which is really a dissociation with spirit, and spirit is rising against us and creating this inner tension where we feel compulsive need to wear a mask, or to overcome nature, by following a narrative that is so flawed and yet promises the containment, of safety, so we're settled for an illusion of safety, but the need for the safety is not really fear itself as much as it's a great unsettled field, of a feeling of being not contained, or not to be able to be in union with spirit. So in essence, it's a spiritual crisis, and then we're willing to project the spiritual leader on individuals who obviously don't have the qualities of a spiritual leader. It's interesting how we are idealizing leaders who are more of an illusion, right, of the leader.
Like placing your faith, Jupiter, in some delusional Neptunian, like it's a misalignment of faith in some way. It's like that Jupiterian faith is being placed in something illusory, that Neptunian. But also, while you're talking, I was thinking about Uranus in Taurus, and how it's, this unsettling grounding. So your footing is insecure, and so you're going to go towards that Jupiter, Neptune, that need for faith in something, but we're also losing our faith in so much. We're losing our faith in our grounding, in the stability, right?
Yes, and then that Saturn Uranus square we've been living through all the way through 2021, and we're really living through in 2022 as well. We're not done with that. We still got one exact square left in the fall. And so that, Saturn, Uranus, and we've been talking about Saturn, and it's interesting, Saturn has been the most powerful planet for the last few years, in that Saturn came into Capricorn, right before the crisis there, and then, in 2019, 2018, and it's Saturn then moved into Aquarius, which is also ruled by Saturn. So then we were, and that's something that we'll pay attention to in terms of the Great Reset, is when Saturn finally moves into Pisces in March 2023. That's going to be quite a big shift, and we'll look at that as we move along.
Should we pull the chart up for
let's do
Jupiter
that.
Neptune? March next year looks kind of crazy.
Well, yes, both Saturn and Pluto. Pluto moves on the same day. Pluto moves in Aquarius, and Saturn moves into Pisces in March. So that'll be very interesting. So This
You can
is
move that all the way out the way.
what's that?
You can move that video out the way. It'll still appear where it needs to appear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we have so that Jupiter Neptune, and this is a chart of the 12th of April, but from the 9th, from the 8th on to the 16th or so, Jupiter and Neptune are within 1 degree of each other. And now you can see Venus has moved into Pisces and Mars is getting ready. So now we have that, the sun is still ruled by Saturn, but Mercury and Uranus ruled by Venus. So now all of a sudden we start to see more planets being ruled by the Jupiter Neptune. And then of course now we have the moon in Virgo ruled by Mercury, by Venus, then we have, we can see the energy shifting. And then as the sun, as well, see, now we're a couple of days away from Mars coming into Pisces. And then all of a sudden, everything here will be ruled by Jupiter, Neptune. So now, by the middle of the month here, we ought to be feeling that Jupiter Neptune conjunction. And then it's interesting how we have Pluto in the 10th house cusp and almost forming a yod or finger of God with Jupiter Neptune. And we're going to be looking at that a lot. The Jupiter, the Pluto Neptune sextile will be really important for the next few years. And by the end of the year, we'll have a Pluto Uranus trine too. That's going to be quite significant. So in studying the astrology of the Great Reset, we'll be looking at that. What do you see in the chart yourself?
Yeah, I think what we're saying to you earlier about this, there's some feeling of a big change coming, and I think this is probably what it is, because there is an element of hope, even though there seems to be a lot of despair that we can focus on, but there seems to be a slight element of hope. And I think that could be related to that Jupiter Neptune and the fact that the Saturn is going to be less ruly, and it's going to shift to more of like a Venus Pisces, like a more Venus Pisces kind of energy, with Mars moving into Pisces. I don't know if that Mars moving into Pisces kind of weakens Mars, like you have a less lack of direction, perhaps.
Well, Mars in Pisces has a very beautiful connotation of the hero in the sign of the mystic. So there's the Martian energy, and Mars is Mars rules Scorpio, and and also Aries. So, there's something very adventurous about it. And when Mars comes into Pisces, very shortly after that, Jupiter will come into Aries. And so we'll have Mars, Jupiter mutual reception for a few weeks. And so that's going to be very interesting. Keeping track of Mars as Mars goes into Pisces, and then so both Venus and Mars will conjoin Jupiter Neptune, and then in May we have a Mars Jupiter conjunction in Aries, and that's going to carry quite a bit of fireworks, I think. And then this is ominous too. This is Mars, Saturn, and so now Mars has passed, but at the beginning of April, Mars, Saturn conjunction, there's a lot of anger in the air. We have a Mars, Saturn conjunction in opposite to the moon. So that's what we'll keep track of, is that Venus and Mars. And so that Jupiter, Neptune will have that's going to be really beautiful too. We'll have a Jupiter Neptune Venus conjunction that comes at the next full moon. And then after that, the Mars, Jupiter, Neptune, and then the Mars, Jupiter conjunction in Aries. It's going to be a fascinating spring because of these things.
There's a quote in the book here, talking about Pisces, Mars, and Venus moving in there. It seems to add a bit of weight to this, talking about Neptune, Jupiter aspect. Among its negative qualities, which I don't know if I feel about negative qualities, but you know, one half of it. So she's referring to Ebertine, describing Jupiter and Neptune, and Ebertine's description of a negative quality. He cites a person easily seduced and an inclination to speculation and wastefulness. So I don't know, just thinking about that, Venus coming through Pisces to come and conjoin that Neptune Jupiter, you could definitely feel that kind of an energy, being easily seduced by your desires, right? So there could be maybe worth looking out for that kind of thing. What are we being seduced into? What are we being asked to have faith in? Right?
You see a lot of that, you know, we're kind of being seduced by materialism, you know, we've allowed ourselves to be seduced by materialism, you know, and you see a lot of folks, you know, they're like, okay, you know, we're back into this hedonistic, you know, and then Jupiter, Neptune, you know, there's a, you know, that's what the materialistic, you know, leaders promise is unlimited enjoyment, and you know, just this illusory party that really discounts and you know, any kind of harmony with Mother Nature, you know, so then creating an illusion of paradise on earth without having to be held accountable to Mother Nature and to spirit. It's a grave delusion that our society is into, and I think that really is the shadow of that Jupiter Neptune conjunction for sure.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, what I'm feeling is that pull into the world of digital, that digital world, that is not really tangible. Like even with like the central bank digital currency, even with like the metaverse, all this kind of Bitcoin, like what, you know, whatever you think of all of these things, it is pulling us away from the reality of physical world, right, into this make-believe. Like it's real, but it's in this digital realm, you know. So we're being seduced into this digital world, whether that's good or bad, you know, I don't know, but yeah, pulling us away from nature and the physical realm here, you know, the mountains, the rivers, this, you know, into this, you know, other world. Yeah.
It's you know, it's interesting, you know, that's kind of what I've been feeling, you know, for me, that Jupiter Neptune conjunction fall, you know, I have a Venus at 26 degrees of Pisces. My Venus is at 26 degrees of Pisces. That Jupiter Neptune conjunction is at what, 23 to 24 degrees?
Around that, yeah.
So, and then when Venus goes in there, so we can have Venus, Jupiter, Neptune conjunction right on my Venus, you know, so there's a real need for me to become real in my spiritual practice, and yet I feel like there's no way I can catch up with all my responsibilities. And I think that's a real Saturnian reality, you know, that here I have this pace of life that is unsustainable. And all I want to do is spend some time in creative and spiritual practice. And yet I'm always driven by technology, you know, by my YouTube channel, by my newsletter, by my this, by my that, you know, I'm behind, I'm not responding to this. And so I get up in the morning, and instead of doing my writing, I go to the computer, you know, I go to Saturn instead of honoring the mystical practice. And I think that in essence, that's where I live the collective neurosis. And it seems to be like I was talking to a friend in Denver or in Boulder, and he has two roommates, and both of his roommates come straight from work and they go straight to the computer and they play video game all evening long, and then in the morning they repeat. And, and it's like that, that's what's become our reality. Is our reality is dominated by technology. And I think that at a particular point, we're going to have to reassess this technology story, because the technology story is sapping the very vitality of our creative expression, our mystical expression, our spiritual practices. And so I think that is at the root of the great dissatisfaction we feel as individuals.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. For me, from my perspective anyway. It may not make sense for everybody, but it makes sense for me completely.
Well, that's another thing I was talking to a friend about is, I was, struggling, and you guys, and if you've, listened to it this far into our chat here, you probably feel the same way that we do. And it's so important for us to feel supported by you. So subscribing to the channel and also giving us your comments and your feedback on our presentation.
Yeah, I think you saying about what's aspecting the Jupiter Neptune.
Yeah.
If people can look into their own personal charts and see maybe what's aspecting that conjunction, if they move on, go and look at the April 12th, 13th and see where that's happening in that 24 degrees Pisces. What's that aspecting? What's there in their chart? If they have a question on that, just to post it below in the comments and maybe we can get to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so what Alan is saying is, where does that Jupiter, Neptune, but also, we're looking at that Venus, Mars, Saturn in Aquarius, where does that fall in your chart? And then everything here, you have Sun, Moon, Chiron. Where does that fall in your chart? I know this is really important for you, isn't it?
Sun, Moon, Chiron, yeah.
Sun, Moon, Chiron, Mercury.
I have Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and yeah, all in here. So I'm getting some pretty strong things happening in that area right now.
And so how are you feeling the Chiron transit to your personal planets?
There's a lot of shifting happening inside, like just with my own personal like levels of confidence, I guess. And like what I came to the other day was the need for recognition, or the need for even in the dreams. We haven't even talked about dreams yet, but yeah, so just this need for attention, right, with Aries and Mercury, Mars, Venus, that's coming through in the dreams, and it's relating to that Chiron, and that, like, look at me, I need the attention in order to gain the confidence. But that's where my trauma lies in some way, and that's where I can learn a lot from, not necessarily needing to get that attention from the external world, but maybe from my own internal world, and trying to, that's where I'm experiencing things right now, for sure.
Wow. This new moon falls exactly on my ascendant myself, and I was thinking about this, because I've been in astrology, I've been at this game of being an astrologer for 14 years now, and I'm wondering, why am I not getting any more traction? And then we were discussing some of the more palatable astrologers who are more surface astrologers, and how many followers they have, and this thing about pop astrology, and looking at astrology from a very superficial level, oh, my sun is in Aries, and so that's astrology, wherever you go, it's going to be interesting. but there is a depth to it. And whenever you go more into depth, then you're not as palatable, because really to follow the whole video, that actually puts quite a bit of a demand on your time and on your intellect, and you got to
Yeah.
research, and you got to go Google this and Google that.
Yeah.
And so, that's when I was looking, okay, we got 356 followers, and then, but the 356 of you who are following us is really important. And I got a great comment just this morning from a gentleman who just watched our videos and really appreciated it. So your comments, your following, and us also realizing that really this, why do we do this? Why did you do this for yourself?
Well, just to make sense, to make my life, like understand my own experience, really. That's why we do it, right? Because whenever I'm in a place of hard times or I'm struggling, I will turn to the astrology, and it will shed some light on what I'm experiencing. And that's really why we do it. And then also it's, with the whole Chiron thing that I have Chiron conjunct Sun and other things aspecting that. And it's also about helping others, right? So you initially turn to astrology for your own stuff, but then you realize, oh, wow, this helps me, so it can help others as well. And so hopefully we are helping people in some way.
Yeah, no, that's exactly why I do it. And in my studies of Jung recently, I just reread volume 16 of the practice of psychotherapy is volume 16 of the collected works. And really Jung kind of demands in that volume that you realize that why you're doing this work is mostly for yourself, and that in every reading, in every session that you do, every client you work with, you find yourself in that client, you find yourself in this video. This is really about finding clarity and contributing what we learn and what we what our practice is. But astrology is a practice. It is a practice in that it's almost like a spiritual system in a sense, where you're connecting with the archetypes on the way that really no other art offers, in that, depth. Exactly.
Yeah, no, nice. And in the vein of helping others, you have a workshop coming up somewhere.
Yes, actually I have a few of them. Tomorrow I'm in Victoria doing I got a new title. You'll find it very interesting. Cycles of Becoming.
Okay, nice.
Because this chart here has so many conjunction in it.
Right.
Well, I'm going to talk about the conjunction and the meaning of the conjunction and how these planetary cycles map out our individuation process.
Right.
So that's going to be fascinating. That's tomorrow at 7 rays. That's tomorrow is what the 31st.
31st tomorrow, March. Yep.
Yeah, March 31st for those who are watching after that. And then on Sunday 2 to 5 at the Soul Center in Duncan, I'm doing the Astrology of the Great Reset. And this is the name of this workshop. I mean, these videos and these video series that we're doing are an expansion of this workshop. And so doing it live, I got some really nice folks coming in. So if you're interested in those live workshops, and if you're interested in having me come to your community this summer, please do reach out. I got lots of material, and my practice depends on you just as much as you depend on me for these beautiful talks. And
yeah, it was awesome. And you can click there's a link below in the description for the website. So just go to the website, click contact, and you can send Martin an email, and yeah, just ask him whatever you want. Yeah,
sounds good.
Cool,
and I want to express my gratitude for everything you do for my practice.
You're very welcome, and thanks for helping me figure out my own psychology and depths of my own self.
Well, we hadn't gotten together in a couple of weeks, and then just going out for coffee this morning and just hanging out in the sun with you, it just eased my my heart, and it's really
man.
important that this brotherhood that we have, that, and I think that that's one of the most important things about these times is who's your community, who's your brothers in arms, who are you, going to, make the best of these times with, and so we need
Yeah.
each other
I
more
think
than ever.
connecting on a physical realm in the same room or outside, whatever you prefer, with people, you're able to speak, you're able to feel each other where you're at, share ideas, and realize that you're not alone. I
Mhm.
think if you're on your computer trying to make connections, it's a little bit more isolating, isn't it?
At the same time, it's a really amazing thing,
Mhm.
I used to never want to do readings. I used to shy away from any kind of technology, really. I don't even have a phone to this day, and I plan on not getting one. I limit myself to one device, that's enough. And just because I'm a very Neptunian kind of person, I need to just, I'm struggling with my one device. And if I think I have had two of them, wherever I'd go, that device would be with me. So that's my Neptunian nature. But I would always insist on doing my readings in person and my workshops in person. And then I never did internet work. And so now this side of my practice has developed, and I think that that's why I'm developing a bit more of a wider audience.
Mhm.
But I've had some great connection online. I
Mhm.
just did a reading for a wonderful young lady and her mother out in Toronto, and so here we are hanging out in the same room through technology. So technology brings a lot of good, and it allows us to be connected. I've been making a great effort to reach out to my old friends and to just have a connection from time to time. So yes, we can further the connection. I think where we get in trouble is where we watch too much news.
Yeah, exactly. Too much reliance on technology sometimes.
It's a problem.
Super helpful though.
Thanks everybody for joining us, and then we'll keep them coming. We'll see you later. Thank you, Alan.
See ya. Thanks, man.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. And then we got to end.